Welcome to Alpha Wolf Capital. I'm Tim, and I want to personally thank you for stopping by. This channel is designed to help small companies, both public and private, gain exposure with potential consumers, investors, even partners. Take, for example, today's guest, Corrado Degasperis, CEO of Comstock Inc., ticker symbol LODE. Comstock Inc. commercializes technologies that enable systemic decarbonization and accelerate the energy transition by efficiently converting underutilized natural resources into renewable energy products. And by leveraging physics-based artificial intelligence for more efficient and effective mineral and materials discovery. This is the third segment, but this one is really a short update of the things that Corrado and his team are working on to advance these endeavors. I'm going to let Corrado tell you more about that in just a moment. This is not to be taken as investment advice. I am not a certified financial planner. This is for education and entertainment purposes only. I encourage everyone to do their own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Capital coming at you with a part three follow-up to Comstock. You've got Corrado Degasperis here for a follow-up to the follow-up, and just had an interesting 8K that was filed. And I think this is it should give people a snapshot of the things you're trying to get accomplished and the potential partners that you are engaging with, which I would say is significant. Corrado, thanks for coming in to give us an update on what's happening. I know you're busy as hell, so we'll try to keep this short. But can you let us know, or let the people that are listening know, what is it? What does this announcement mean this morning? What is it? What does it really mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it was purposely light on details that shouldn't take away from, the magnitude of the milestone. We announced that, we're partnering with Marathon with an offtake agreement for our first facility, which we've been saying, Oklahoma is at the top of the list for our first facility. We talked about joint development agreements, which were really wonderful in terms of, getting the right specifications for our fuels out of that facility, getting the right pathway approvals, out of that facility, with a leader in the industry that is, super expert, in those things. And then also an investment, and so the details, we were very explicit in the AK that it's not definitive, right? There's just a term sheet, and those details are not final, and there's a timeline for making them final. So that's the good news, right? We got a lot more wood to chop and work to do, but it's a meaningful milestone for us because, overall, Oklahoma's given us $3 million in sending us to start there. We're gonna start there. I don't know if people have seen, but just a few days ago, announced that Oklahoma was allocated over 150 million in tax-free municipal bonds just for that first facility. And we've been saying over and over that we're looking to take investments from strategic and financial, and even the financial parties are strategic in their motives, right? To either enable sustainable aviation fuel capacity or, enable more energy and more powerful energy solutions, as well as companies, like Marathon that, benefit directly from the oils and the feedstocks that we produced coming right into that subsidiary. So, it's another brick, in the wall. It's another, another piece, to the system that we feel blessed to be to be working with, such leaders in the industry. Not to forget, working with Hexas Biomass on innovative feedstock solutions, working with the National Renewable Energy Lab and MIT on, technology advancements that even go beyond what we're building in serial number one, but now blue chip offtake partners, et cetera. Again, the work is not final. It's progressing. We feel it's material to us to let people know it's progressing, so that's the heart of it. But it's a lot, it's not one transaction, it's not one component, it is in effect two or three major pieces, to a bigger puzzle that's all coming together very nicely.
So you and I talked briefly before we hopped on, and the reality is, as the CEO of a company, that and you're working on all these things that are this. I mean, it's a delicate dance because you've got so many components that you have to be respectful of. There's companies that don't want anybody knowing that they're in negotiations for anything, right? So they don't want their names named at all. I mean, there are
Yeah.
a lot of challenges,
I
right?
don't, I don't think I think we would agree, like wholeheartedly that the ideal scenario, right? The ideal scenario is, wait until it's final, wait until it's definitive, and then you can share specifics, of those definitive agreements. It's just in our current, it's just we're in a very interesting point on the curve, where we feel it is material to provide these updates, even if we can't be fully disclosed, and we shouldn't be fully disclosed. We shouldn't even at all be disclosed with things that are not final. So I think our investors also are appreciating that more and more, because it's hard now. It's hard now to ignore the substance of the progress. Bricks just keep dropping, and it's not one step forward, two steps back, or two steps forward, one step back. I mean, we've just been taking steps forward, for the last 6 months. It's very rewarding to our teams to make this progress. It's also, we're very sober that, we've got a lot of wood to chop, right? We still have, a lot of work to do. And so there's absolute mutual alignment, with all of our counterparties. There's total transparency with our counterparties. We're not going to communicate anything, that speaks to or addresses some aspect of someone else's business unless they've cleared it and they agree with it. That makes no sense, right? That would be selfish, and we're not that way. So it's great. We couldn't be more excited, about all the work that's on our plate. We have very little time to think about what we just finished because, we've got a dozen things right in front of us that need to be attended to. So it's great.
So just out of curiosity, Corrado, what's your average workday like? When's it start? When's it end?
Yeah, so I can't sleep like past 3:30 or 4 a.m. you know so I'm always at my desk, by 4:30, um and with some balance, 15, 16 hours is a normal day. And it's fun. Like there's no I don't feel any um, I don't feel any drag, when it comes to the work we're doing. It's also relevant to know that, the work we're doing is extremely impactful. It's impactful to communities. It's impactful to economies. It's impactful to humanity. And that's not, we don't say that lightly. I mean, one of the warmest revelations that we had when we were engaged with Wendy Owen and Hexas, biomass, was the notion that, that biomass is enriching to the soils. That biomass can be grown, in very marginal environments that couldn't support, a normal seasonal farming cycle. The profitability per acre, and of course it varies, depending on, the soils and the proximity to the equator and, the atmospheric conditions, but it's multiples and multiples and multiples of profitability per acre, and so now you're saying, geez, you can create new economies in rural communities that will be very prosperous, very, very profitable, while not hurting the soils, while not hurting the environment. On the contrary, enhancing the environment. At the same exact time, those feedstocks, which are ridiculously versatile, like they have the characteristics of grass, they're called xanografts and xanofiber, which means they're easier to grow. They're perennial. You cut at the base, you leave that carbon root system in the ground. It is the foundation of the next stalk. They're sucking CO2 out of the air into the ground, driving our model to carbon negative. You can invert the curve with enough acres. So now you're making way more money. You're much more attending the environment. Why did Wendy and John and the Hexas team get into this endeavor? They wanted to save food, for people, and they wanted to avoid the need to cut down trees. So they create this hybrid, that saves trees and saves food. What? It's crazy and it's more profitable. And then as a purposeful, grown feedstock, a purposeful fuel feedstock, um, it's the lowest variable cost that we could have ever expected to sustainably feed our machine. Like, I mean, it's quintessential innovation resulting in win-win. It's quintessential grow the freaking pie to the moon for all to prosper from. I mean, this woman, it's incredible what she's led. It's incredible what she's led. Then in fairness, so is our innovations, that our teams have led. And ironically, they're both better with each other.
Right.
It's truly, I mean, we can't get over it. We're giddy about it. And it's fundamentally changed. It's fundamentally changing our site selection strategy. It's biasing us, I'm sorry, to more ownership, more integrated solutions with farming, with farms. It's giving us bigger and better access to rural communities in a safe and amazing way, and it doesn't knock waste wood out of the equation. On the contrary, right? Now you can optimize the mix, of waste and hexes that you're feeding the machine, so I live for this stuff, man. It's just incredible what's happening. And it's not a tagline to say an oil well that never stops producing. I mean, it might have been a tagline when Kevin first came up with it, like I don't know, but I doubt it because he's so much more visionary. But it's a reality. I mean, we are literally staring at oil wells that will never stop producing. Like we're staring at them, and in some cases it's converting to less productive uses. In some cases it's enabling completely unproductive lands.
So
Great.
let's shift focus for a second here. Let's talk
Yeah,
about, in order to build something great, in order to build something like this, it's going to require capital, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's reality. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
There are
yeah,
all types of different things that you can do uh, to achieve that role of obtaining capital, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, look, when you We're a capitalist society. It's our social contract. What do? We take capital and we deploy it into good ideas for what? High throughput, high fast, and big returns that are hopefully sustainable. That's what everybody should live for. It's the top fraction of a fraction of percent of our community, of our, economic population that can raise good capital, deploy it for high return, and that it's sustainable. You know, so I don't, people should have joy, when capital is being raised, from good sources to deploy for good uses that will create extremely high returns and, hopefully in some cases generational type wealth for all involved. But 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 then there's the dark side, right? The dark side of capitalism where, people get just sucked into this, you know, dilution debate, right? And we'll be the first ones to say that if you're promoting capital sources into unproductive activities, if you're, selling shares for no objective, if you're on a treadmill and you're just bleeding it dry, you suck. Like you shouldn't be in business, right? You know, there are certain segments of the market, and you know, development segments or junior mining segments, I don't know, they're renowned for being capital destroyers. We should not in any way, shape, or form, right, be associated with that paradigm. Okay. We built a mine, we produced and poured gold and silver. Nothing promotional about that. We won the top environmental awards at the federal, state, and local government for our stewardship of those lands. We got almost 90% yields from oxide ores for gold. So, it's offensive to me, to be categorized. Does it always work out? It doesn't always work out. There's real risks that real people take that don't always work out perfectly. We're proud of everything that we've done. Now, fast forward 4 years ago, you want to invest in a sub TRL3, idea. Didn't never been done before. I don't care if you're talking about electrification product recycling or, in other words, waste batteries or waste solar panels to renewed metals or waste wood to renewed fuels. Two ideas, sub TRL3. Get them to TRL6, get them metals already now to TRL7. Start commercializing both businesses. How much did you spend in 4 years? 50 million, 60 million? 60 million for two world impacting technologies, right? That could, transform, how these metals are produced and how these fuels are produced. I mean, in a vacuum, if we did it privately with venture capital, I don't know, like we don't seek the limelight here, but there'd be rock star status with some of our teams, they've killed it. Um, so, and then there's participants in these capital markets that just feed off those paradigms. They just feed off them. It's very easy for them to superficially say, like, oh, it's just endless dilution. When is it going to stop? But if you look at our shareholders, you look at our shareholders. Somebody say, oh, they're retail shareholders. No, no, they're very sophisticated, right? There's a large number of people that have, between 1.5 and 5.5 million shares. That's meaningful. 2.5 million shares, 3 million shares. You talk to them. They understand what we're doing. They understand the journey that we've come. There is not one person, including myself, that doesn't wish we could have sold some land sooner, couldn't brought in some capital that was more permanent in nature better than me, you know, but the evidence is suggesting that with term sheets, with sophisticated counterparties, it's coming. It's coming for all the right reasons. So we want to deploy capital. We're not only not ashamed, we're proud of our ability to attract sophisticated counterparties and sophisticated capital. It's what I said in my shareholder letter. We're dealing with known, names that we've publicized and unknown names that we haven't publicized, debt and equity at the corporate and subsidiary level. In total, with hindsight, net, it's going to be a very nice, you never get to perfectly optimal, but you try to get as close as you can. That does minimize dilution, but it also accelerates and maximizes accretion of value. That's what a capitalist system does. That's what capital allocators and deployers do. We're very disciplined. And we will never, the cardinal sin of any um, responsible financial executive, which I am one of those, right, is to run out of liquidity, to don't not have sufficient liquidity lined up. We'll never let that happen. I would never let that happen. Certainly die if, trying to prevent it from happening, Um,
Right.
and so I'm actually thrilled with our shareholder base. I'm thrilled with their knowledge. I've gotten the wonderful opportunity to talk to them almost all one-on-one, over the last month, just, since the shareholder letter was put out to answer questions, explain what we meant and what we said publicly, and all leading up to next week, where we'll have our special meeting. For what purpose? The purpose, as you and I talked before, is to increase our authorized capacity. Now, everyone's freaking, not everyone, by the way. Most are not. You know, we're well over 90% threshold of support. It's been incredible. It's been it's a knowledge-based support. People are not voting ignorantly. They want to understand. They want to have the explanation be clear. They want to support, and then from there, we will raise capital, preferably at the subsidiary level with strategics, preferably with the right amount of leverage and safe debt instruments like the tax-free municipal bonds, like USDA loans, preferably some amount at corporate to ensure a very, very strong platform to create wealth that I can tell you for sure no one's overestimated. No one out there is really thinking about how big this can become, right? It's big. Yeah. So I think it's fantastic. Like we couldn't feel better, and we're not even a little bit tired. I mean, we're ridiculously energized, with all that's happening around us.
And just to clarify, I mean, you've got internally the company uh, has a lot of land, has a lot of potential opportunities or levers that you could pull if it makes sense, right?
Yeah, we have. I mean, I think people are familiar that the Sierra Springs Opportunity Zone has over 2,500 acres of land that we own 17.5% of that company, and we have strong, control authority over the direction of what's happening there. We own another almost 260 acres of land and water rights adjacent to, Sierra Springs massive position. We own that directly. We're trying to monetize that land. People have said, what's taking so long? The data center explosion has been, both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because values are going to the moon and we could not be happier about it. It's a curse because they're sucking up every freaking electron that you can get your hands on. So the lead times for power have grown, and that pauses people, right? People don't want to put capital down and just land bank it for a couple of years, right? They want to develop it. And so we've been vigorously working on alternative power solutions. The good news is Nevada Energy is pouring billions and billions. If you looked at the green lines and the new lines that they're already well approved and in progress. For some reason they all come to Silver Springs. So as we couldn't be happier with the value of these properties today and in the future. But we're also looking at some other innovations. Markets are wonderful that way, right? If there's a bottleneck for feedstock for renewable fuels, solutions and innovations like Comstock fuels emerge, right? When there's a bottleneck for power, other innovations emerge, and those innovations are emerging, and we're engaged in a lot of discussions there too. So we're always focused on what's the bottleneck and how do we unblock it. And when you focus on it, you get it done. So I think that's great. In addition to all that land that you and I just talked about, our mining estate is 10,000 acres, of which almost another 3,000 are private lands. Some which have minerals, some which have minerals, some which don't have minerals, right? So there's a tremendous amount of post-mineral development opportunities that look, are they our number one priority? No, fuels is our number one priority, metals is number 1A, but then everything else is two or lower. So, but we're not, nothing's on the shelf. I think is what's important to know. Some just have more complex and longer lead times to solve. But those discussions, those solutions, those conflict resolutions are all in progress. They're all in progress, right? Some look like a rabbit racing down the track. Some look like, a turtle, but they're all moving forward.
Right. And I guess that's what I really want to try and emphasize for everybody, that everything is on the table. I mean, everything is on the table. You're looking at everything, right? This is not a binary choice, right?
Oh,
This
no.
is
No, 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 no. I mean that, look, we like to simplify things. We like to think holistically, look at anything that we're dealing with as a system. So you can't look at real estate development without power infrastructure. I mean, some people do, that's dumb, right? You can't look at, fuel production without feedstock or farms, you can't, you have to understand the whole system and then focus on the part that's blocking. So we like to simplify things, we like to focus things, but I would say that a core competency is handling complexity. But part of the ability to handle complexity is understanding the system and focusing on the one or two things that matter, that really at the end of the day are the only two things, one or two things that matter, and putting your intense, resource focus on that. So we're excited. I guess as we look forward, one of the things that we highlighted in that announcement today was, we used the word Series A for fuels for the first time, right? So it's nice to see that, there's real companies interested in that. I've said publicly multiple times, there's many companies interested in that. And so, we're looking forward to announcing those things as soon as they're known, targeting hopefully Q2 to have a real, solid, consolidation of interest and investment into that subsidiary. We had mentioned that SBC was originally interested in doing that, and the strategics, I think supersede that, they're still interested at the corporate level. They're still interested in metals. Quite frankly, they love what we're doing in fuels. So that's ongoing, and then at the, special purpose vehicle level, the project entity level, we got the bonds, and we'll look at, things like equity, tax equities, and other components. And 2025 is going to be a bull run on intelligent capital, for our company. We're not shy
you
about it, and we shouldn't be shy. We should be proud of it. Like I don't, this dilution debate, we understand it. We have to be sensitive to the notion that a lot of shares were issued and people weren't sure, right? They weren't sure if they were issued to a specific end. We're sure that they were issued towards a specific end, okay? But they don't have as much information as we have, so that they have the right to be skeptical, but each time we make an announcement, each time, you know, we make progress, we want to reduce that skepticism, increase that confidence, it'll take care of itself.
Okay. One last final note, because
Sure.
I want people to understand that I do read their comments and their questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a question about, what is the cost of a gallon of your bio aviation fuel to what's currently out there?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a challenging thing, and I knew it was going to be because it's a very thing, it's difficult to put a price and say, well, this is going to be the price because you don't know for sure really
Yeah.
what the
So,
price is going
yeah.
to be.
So it's a good topic. So look, let me say this. We can say four or five very, very relevant things, right? Which may or may not be sufficient, to answer the question, but they're relevant. One is, you know, the biofuel industry, right, it does have a reliance on the renewable fuel standard and enhanced by, the California fuel standards and, currently being enhanced by, states like Oklahoma, Minnesota, New York, et cetera, wanting to add their own fuel standards to the equation. But today there is a renewable fuel standard. It's been in place for decades. It's solid and it's important. When we look at our model, because we used waste woody biomass and woody-like biomass, we see the lowest feedstock cost in the industry. When we look at our CI scores at 15 and below, and Hexas biomass potentially driving it to negative, we see the highest revenues in the industry. Full stop. Highest revenue per gallon in the industry. Full stop. Why? Because we have D6 RINs, not D3 RINs. Why? Because the incentives around diesel and sustainable aviation fuel are very strong. You know, um, and and so we have the lowest feedstock costs. We have the lowest, one of the lowest CI scores. We have the highest revenues as a result of that, right? We believe we have the most profitable renewable biofuel model. Okay, that doesn't mean it doesn't rely on the renewable fuel standard. We have an intermediate objective, and we have multiple initiatives in place to be independently profitable of the renewable fuel standard, even though we don't see the renewable fuel standard going anywhere. And the recent proclamations by the Trump administration, both in terms of energy emergency and energy dominance, you know, are has biofuel smack dab in the middle of both of those orders. So when we hear the new Department of Energy director talk about energy, 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 and energy dominance domestically, like we believe we're a critical cog in that solution. So that's an intermediate objective of ours to cut capital costs, cut operating expenses, increase yields, even beyond our industry leading yields. Okay, that brings us to a new state of reality. We're profitable without it today, brings us to a new state of reality. And then the holy grail, which requires additional breakthroughs to get to cost parity with petroleum. Why do we want to get to cost parity with petroleum? Because we're greedy son of a bitches? No. We want to get to cost parity with petroleum because then we will force the biggest oil companies in the world to have to make new capital allocation decisions. Instead of biofuels being a nice segment of their growth profile, we want to challenge the foundational paradigm of what's the most important thing to deploy your capital to. And again, it's a win-win. There's no negatives. They get to choose. We'll make the choice harder. But those are longer term objectives, just to be clear.
All right, Corrado, I know you're busy. I know you got to go.
Great
Uh,
call, and
I
as always.
appreciate you. I appreciate you coming in, and we'll do another one soon.
Yeah,
Thank you.
looking forward to it. Yeah, lots happening. A lot's happening in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. So let's stay connected, please.
Thank you
Okay,
for
my
tuning
friend.
in to
All right,
another
we'll talk
CEO
soon.
interview
Yep,
here
be
at
good. Have a
Alpha
great
Wolf
weekend.
Capital. Today we
Bye.
had Corrado Degasperis, CEO of Comstock. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, please do us a favor, give us a like, give us a share. How about smashing that subscribe button? All of those things are extremely important to us here at Alpha Wolf Capital, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Capital wishes you the very best of success.